You're listening to the Sanditon Chronicles, where we talk all things Sanditon and Sanditon adjacent. Come along with us as we dissect all of your favorite characters, scenes, and dialogue. We have so much to tell you.
Yeah. So the earlier on, just for instance, when he is handing out the invitation to the mess, the meal, and he walks up and, she's all excited. There's a red coat coming and she goes thinking she's going to see Carter. And she says, "Oh, it's you." It's like,
poor Fraser.
Yeah.
And I think he even laughed a little bit about that when she said that.
Yes.
And I mean, he's obviously falling for this girl. He thinks she's beautiful. He thinks and they match wits. Allison's not a stupid character. I mean, she gives herself over for the first ever blooms of romance and what she thought was love. So she's naive, but she's not stupid. And so her and Fraser actually mesh well because she can match his wit. And so I think when she said that to him laughing about it was almost like incredulous of, really?
Yeah.
But he kind of slapped it off.
And the line about, she says something about him being handsome, and Fraser says, "I don't think that's for me to say." Yep. And then he turns around back later when they're at the meal and says the uncommonly, that's not the word, how handsome he is. He says that to her, how handsome Fraser is. We're sure you wouldn't want to change seats because you want to sit by him instead of me, because after we know he's uncommonly handsome, but it's not uncommonly. But anyway, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a funny line. He's just has such a wonderful sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And with Allison, and I don't know if this is the direction you wanted to go, but anyway, this is where we are, where Allison and Carter, their interactions were all kind of butterflies and sugar plums and very, sweet and totally ungenuine.
Yep.
And the interactions with Fraser are totally honest and, honest, except for he doesn't admit he's interested in her. But
he doesn't necessarily hide it. He just doesn't verbally admit it.
Well, she asked if there isn't somebody in his life, and he describes her, and she doesn't get it. She doesn't realize that it's her. So he doesn't exactly hide it, but he doesn't declare himself that way. But so the contrast in the conversations is real.
Mm-hmm. That's actually the exact direction I was going to go.
Oh, okay, good. So the ones with Carter are very surface, and the ones with Fraser are a lot more real and in depth and honest.
And she comes alive when she talks to Fraser. She's not with Carter. It's kind of all moony-eyed and smiling and batting the eyelashes from both of them. But with Fraser, there's a fine line between, it's passion. Passion is passion. And so there's that fine line between I passionately dislike you or I passionately like you. And I don't think she realized it, but I don't think she ever actually dislikes Fraser because he doesn't do anything to earn her dislike. I think she's almost confused by him, and that infuriates her that she's confused by him. Right. But when she talks to him, she comes alive. So does he. But I think that's the big difference is that with Carter, because there's no substance, he doesn't truly make her feel anything. No. And that's why it stays surface, because there's no substance there. But with Fraser, because who he is as a person and the fact that he doesn't care for the surface nonsense, he would rather talk about more important things, be more important, have more substance. It causes her to have that same reaction back.
Yeah. No, that's right. It's like when she's with Carter, it's all about my ideal, what I think romance should be. And it's all very, as I said, surface, but it's all, what they each have this image of what romance and love should be instead of reality.
Yeah. And for Allison, I mean, when Carter saved her, because that's what kicked it off. Yeah, he's a good looking guy. So she probably would have felt, tried to chase him a little bit because he's a good looking guy. But for her, it was when he saved her. So she had this idea that if he saved me, and he didn't really save her, by the way, he was just happened to be there when she woke up.
Yeah, he turned her over.
She has this idea that because he did this one act, that this must be what he is in all situations, even though this one act involved no real danger. It had no real bearing on what would happen to him or what any consequences on him at all. She kind of felt, well, this is who he's going to be always. And I think that real heroes aren't like that. They don't, it's not like they come out, they're like, I am so great and I'm going to do this all the time. Like Fraser, you look at Fraser and he fought in these wars. He fought alongside captains. He saved men. He did all these things. He's not out there boasting about it. No, he's not out there saying, look at how good I am. And I think even when he's had those moments of rescue, he saved Allison from the river when stupid Carter brought her on a boat when neither one of them could swim. And to ask her to marry him.
To propose,
It was Fraser who jumped in. And even then, when she was not very nice to him, and obviously it was mostly because she was upset because she realized that Carter was not being honest. She realized
what her sister and Georgiana were trying to tell her was true.
So, that's part of it, but still, and still she was not very nice to Fraser, and yet he continued to, he gave her that book afterwards, and he apologized to her afterwards, and he still did all these actually chivalrous things, whereas Carter, she just assumed his chivalry because he happened to be there when she opened her eyes after that beach incident.
Her interaction with him was like a 14-year-old's, and her interaction with Fraser was more like a 18-year-old or a 20-year-old.
An actual woman. And I think watching her come to that realization of what kind of man he was really satisfying.
Yeah.
Because I think Fraser, he's not necessarily, he actually is, but he's not necessarily viewed as a main character, right? Because the focus is so heavily on Charlotte and Colburn or Charlotte and Lennox, but he is a substantial character in this show who doesn't get enough credit. And I'm not just saying that from the actor's point of view, but I'm actually saying it from Fraser's point of view. He doesn't get enough credit for who he is because the focus is elsewhere, but he is a substantially good, a substantially strong, and a substantially redeemable character. And he helps Allison be redeemable.
Yeah. And grow up. Mature.
Yeah.
Actually, I have several favorite scenes. One of my favorite scenes is with them is when he actually proposes, when she finds out he's a farmer. He comes from being a farmer, and how she's laughing at herself because that's not what she thought she wanted. And then, it's a wonderful scene, very satisfying, and it makes up for the fact authors did this to us in both series. They had one relationship that blossomed and bloomed and they ended up getting married, and one relationship that, both of them with Charlotte, that ended up being sort of torn apart. And so we are trusting Justin Young and the other writers that they will come back together in the next season.
They will.
So all the people that are so on board with Colburn are projecting because they don't know how this is going to go.
Yes, we do.
You've seen the script, have you? We've been promised a happy ending, and certainly.
Oh, don't bring that up. That's painful.
Huh?
So don't bring that up. That's painful.
Oh, well.
I do think that Fraser and Allison are a nice taste of happy ending, because it is satisfying to know their ending. It is satisfying to leave this, not just the proposal, leaving it there would have been sweet enough. and it would have been good. And even in that, like, I love when he's like, "This is funny to you." He
Yeah.
just, he doesn't allow her to be surface, because
No,
that's not who
that's right.
she is. She, like I said, she's an intelligent character. She's an intelligent person. And Fraser doesn't allow her to scoop back down into below where she should be, because he knows who she actually is and who she has the potential to be. And so I like that he keeps her on her toes and he keeps her going. But we ended with their wedding, which was so beautiful. And
Yeah.
it was just such, it's jarring, a jarring ending from that to season 1's ending. But I think that might be why they ended on a wedding instead of a goodbye, because we all are going to be completely triggered by any goodbye at all ending it there, because there's going to be rioting in the fandom if that happens again.
There was a goodbye, but then they had the wedding. Whereas in season 1, it was a wedding and then a goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
But there was still sort of a goodbye at the wedding when we find out that she's engaged to the farmer.
But even that seems like another new beginning rather than an ending.
Yeah, it's definitely sort of a cliffhanger. What's going to happen now? There's 2 cliffhangers, that and her relationship with Colburn, which seems to be ended. At least we know it's not going to be, but if you were just reading it on the surface, you've never been part of the fandom. It was so funny. One of the gals who has been involved in the whole Sanditon sisterhood, I've seen her post on Twitter for a long time. She had a post yesterday about, I'm thinking about watching Sanditon. I've heard it's good. What do you think? And I wrote her back and said, "You are so funny."
Did you tell her to start with the second season?
No. So another thing about Fraser I learned is that he had a recurring role in Game of Thrones, which I think was on the North Wall, if I recall correctly. And he actually has a part in Bridgerton. And I'm going to have to go back and rewatch Bridgerton to find him. I'm not sure. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? I read that in another article. And
we'll look that up while we're talking.
When you go to his IMDb page, there's not much information in there. And he obviously, we have talked before about the fact that he was in Viking Valhalla with our James Stringer.
Yep.
Anyway.
I want to watch that because James Stringer looks so intense in that. Yeah. I've seen some clips with him in it, and he's such a different character from James Stringer.
He is, yeah. Yeah.
I think the other thing I like about Fraser too, and I know this is a surface level thing, I like that he uses his Irish accent, and they placed him in Ireland, his family from Ireland. I really enjoy that.
Yes, I would agree. And of course, Rosie's from Ireland too. Yep. Yeah. So, and he also talked in there about how excited he was to do this role because it was the first role he'd ever done that was a romantic part. So because mostly he's been in other kinds of pieces.
And what I like about this particular style of romance is it's not all flowery, it's not all rainbows, it's a gruff version of romance. And I think that's one, I think it's really suited to Sanditon and really suited to, why can't I find him on this page? It's really suited to Sanditon and it's really suited to Allison and that town, but it's also really suited to what people really want. I think people have this idea, like Allison did, that, oh, I want this flowery, easygoing, all this never fighting, all on the same page all the time romance. No one really wants that because that's boring. It's so boring.
Well, and it's fine for little pieces of time, but not on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, because you need that friction to create that passion. I mean, even the Bible says iron sharpens iron. And so I get that aspect of it. You need to be similar in essentials, but you also need an opposite to sort of complete you because it brings in that tension that you need and that passion that you need. And I think that's what he brings to it.
Yes. And also I think about the interactions between Fraser and Carter, and how Carter is, oh, you're going to do this for me, of course, and helping him with the poetry thing and writing something for him or giving him something to share with Allison. And he agrees to it, and he agrees to it with just his facial expression, which was wonderful. And he and then later on, I love the contrast in that sort of those scenes, and then the one at the end near the one of the very last scenes when Leo has gone looking for Colonel Lennox, and then they're leaving, and Carter says, should we ask if her sister, asked Miss Haywood if her sister has left yet? And Fraser is like, well, we know she's leaving. And he says, Carter says, I've never known you to be a coward, and here you're being a coward. That was good. And just his interaction with Leo earlier in that scene as she's entering the camp. And he is, you're right, he's a lot more of a central character than you realize until you go back and see it, because he's in the background when a lot of things are happening. He's with Lennox, and then the sort of crowning thing is when Tom comes back into town, comes back to the camp to try and square things out with Lennox, and get settle his debt and get the town folk paid for what they're owed. And he's standing behind Lennox when they're doing that
the game.
They're playing blackjack basically. And and he, so he sees a lot about what's revealed, not just us, but about Lennox's character, And
that particular scene was one I was going to bring out too. Keep going. Sorry.
No, we can talk about that scene.
Well, it's just that when you look at Fraser's face while that game is playing out, you can see the kind of man he is. He is not like Lennox. He is not out to cook things to his greatest advantage. He is not out to pull the wool over anyone's eyes or even be greater than he's a humble man who believes in doing the right thing for the right reasons. And you can see how just by his facial expression alone in that scene, when there's a reason they pan over to Fraser in that scene.
Yes.
And he looks very not uncomfortable, but he's certainly not happy with how Lennox is playing this out. And even when Tom wins, he smiles because he realizes that Lennox is the villain here. And again,
he's one.
Lennox doesn't play the typical villain. He's almost a likable villain.
Yeah.
Because he's not all bad, but Fraser realizes who the better man is in this situation.
And just sees really Lennox's true colors. And I'm sure, we don't get this verbalized, but you can, because of what happens later, the fact that he resigns his commission.
Yep.
And which is also, I think, part of that was when another part of that scene is when Edward shows up. And Lennox has received this letter from Lady Denham, and he removes his, he realizes that he's never going to get the money from his commission. And he removes his, what do you call those things on his shoulders? But anyway.
They're not medallions.
I'm
watching a lot of Chicago Fire, so I want to call them bugles, but I don't think that's actually what they're called.
The officer's identification, whatever they call it. And very dramatically, of course, this is like he just got kicked by losing, and he's kicking the dog, as it were. And so you see Fraser is observing all of that. So what's going through his head is, do I want to spend any more time in this officer's presence? Yes, we went through battle together, and that was all well and fine, but here's the truth of the man. And so that's when he chooses to resign his commission and go to Allison.
And I think part of that too is even that he respects rank, And I think he knew that he couldn't serve under him and not correct and not fight back, because he's realizing that he's not really a very good man. And he couldn't serve under that kind of leadership because Fraser is a good man and wants to do the good and right thing. And I think that part of it was that as a good man who does the right thing, he would respect the chain of command, and he wouldn't be able to really say anything to Colonel Lennox because he's a colonel and he's above him and he outranks him and he's essentially his boss. So I think that was like threefold there.
Right. And also, I mean, it's obvious they went through a war together, but Lennox was a more upstanding man during war than he is during peace.
Because that's who he is. Lennox is he thrives on that kind of atmosphere, that chaos, that tension, that where everyone is looking to him. That's what he thrives off of. And Fraser doesn't thrive off of everyone looking to him. Fraser just wants to come alongside people and partner with them. Yeah. And I think that's what we see in Allison. And I think I'm really curious to see because I feel like he's going to end up being a farmer. I mean, that's his skill set. He's not a first son. He had to buy his commission in the military. So he's a military man, but his background of his family is farming. So, I mean, I think it's safe to assume he's going to go into farming. Yeah. But he's got to have some land to do that. So.
Right. You know, so it'll be interesting to see where the story goes with those two. And I hope they are present in the next, I hope they have roles to play.
Yeah.
And I think they
agree.
will, especially at the very least for during the time that they're in Wellington, because that's where they've just gotten married.
Yeah.
And I suspect that he may live there with her family for a while.
That's what I
until they can get their own place or whatever, And
he has to be able to buy a parcel of land to farm it.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I forgot what I was going to say.
It would be a shame if they acted as if, okay, they're married, their story's done, because those two, I feel like and it's not often that you get your happy ending in a relationship or in something that you're watching and you think, okay, it's just getting started. Usually when you get the happy ending, it's like, okay, all done. But with them, it was just that last episode we were rewarded with, oh, hey, they're together and now they're married. Their happy ending is just starting. So I'm really hoping that they don't treat that as, okay, their story's over. They're married, they're happy, their story's over, because they have way more to complete.
Yeah, I think they'll at the very least be involved in the story of whatever happens with Charlotte and well, I was that too, but between Charlotte and Ralph, and how that all comes about. I just can't wait to see it. By the way, I saw an interview with Alexander that plays Charles.
I never want to say his
Lockhart.
name because it's Vlahos, but I don't know how to pronounce it.
Vlahos or something like that.
So I never say it out loud because I just don't want to butcher it.
I know. I saw an interview with him and he said that he filmed both seasons.
Yeah, because they asked him back for season 3, didn't he?
Yeah. And I had seen a post about that at the time it happened, but he confirmed what my memory, that he is in season 3. Yeah. I just can't wait to see what happens.
I think with Fraser, the other thing too, I said that already, that he was kind of that rugged personality and he's that rugged romance guy. I think what makes him the ideal, not catch, but romantic lead is that he can be that rugged, but also tap into his sensitive side, like sharing the poetry with her or telling her all these things he felt about her without telling her it was her at that garden party. He has this really, and it's because he has a heart. It's because he's a compassionate human being, but he's showing that you can still be a man, a typical man, while still giving into that. And I think that Carter, if you compare those two, Carter thought, no, I had to make up all these stories of war. Can't really be myself. Right. I've got to make up these battle stories and how I saved all these people. Where Fraser clearly demonstrates you need to ever be you, but also he demonstrates that you can still be that man of valor and that man of ruggedness and typical masculinity while also being this sensitive, compassionate, caring type. You don't have to be one or the other in order to be successful. You just be you. And I think that's something that Carter is learning from Fraser. And I kind of hope to see Carter again too. I don't think we will because the company has moved on, but
yeah, I don't think we will.
I don't mean recording company. I just mean the military company has moved on and out of Sanditon and
right.
never allowed to return. So I don't think we're ever going to see Carter again.
They've been transferred to India.
Yes. So I do think it would be nice to see him grown from what he saw Fraser do, because I think we see a little inkling of that when they had that conversation in the tent, when Carter tells him you're being a coward, because I think Carter realizes actually what love is. And I think, or at least he starts to, and it's because of how Fraser handled himself and because of how Fraser handled Allison and handled that situation and was willing to go and apologize to her when he wasn't the one who did anything wrong. I think Carter had a lot to learn from him. And I think we only saw the start of that before they were separated.
Yeah. And another scene where Fraser sits down with Carter and said, you need to go and apologize and explain yourself. And he's, he obviously isn't courageous enough to do that at that point and doesn't think it's going to get him anywhere. So
that's not why you apologize either, to get something, but it's almost like that's what he's saying is, well, she's not really going to forgive me. It's not going to benefit me. So why am I going to do it? Well, you're not apologizing for you. You're apologizing for what you did to her. It's for her, not for you.
Another thing about Fraser is he's obviously an educated man, even if he is a farmer and comes from a farming family. And I don't think they'll probably, because we didn't see it this season, I suspect we won't get back the actors who played her father, Mr. Haywood. But it would be fun if they did, to see the interaction between him and Fraser's character.
I mean, we might, especially if that's where the land ownership and the farming aspect is going to come from. I think they would have to put Mr. Haywood in mind. Mr. Haywood.
It would be nice, but I don't know. But so you can see though that they would get along well, those two characters.
I agree.
But anyway, I loved her father's character, so I'd love to see him back. Maybe giving her advice about Ralph or whatever. But anyway, it'll really be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that it's just like Fraser, not only is he like a romantic lead, but he's someone like I would want to be friends with.
Yes.
I have friends like that, but I really want to be friends with Fraser. He's right. Like we talked about, he's got that wit, he's got that charm, he's got that ruggedness, he's got the compassionate side, he's got that kind side. But you also see him, I mean, the way he is with Leo, he doesn't have to be that way with Leo. He doesn't have to talk to her at her level. He didn't have to help Allison through the situations he helped Allison in. He didn't have to do a lot of things he did, but he just genuinely, he's there to help people. He's going to do the right thing no matter what it costs him. And that's why I think, because some people were saying that after season 2 had come out, that in that scene in the garden party where he's telling her all these things, and then they brought up later on when Carter called him a coward, that, well, he's just afraid. I think it's more than just that he's afraid of being hurt by Allison. I think it's that he genuinely thought, I'm not the one Allison wants, so I want her to be happy. I'm not going to throw my hat in this ring because I'm not going to make it harder for her.
And also, I think that he was just being very respectful of her and her desires. Yep. And he maybe have in the back of his mind realized that at some point she was going to figure out who Carter really was.
I think he hoped that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that I think Fraser would have held on too much guilt from that if it actually went through and he didn't know. And that walk when they were leaving Trafalgar House, or maybe they weren't leaving Trafalgar House, but they were just walking through Sanditon. And that's when she had mentioned, he's handsome, whatever. He was asking her questions about how she felt about Carter and why she liked him and that sort of thing. And I think that was him trying to feel her out of, okay, can I say this to you? Can I tell you how I feel? Or are your affections already taken by this guy? And if it's taken by this guy, I'm going to do the honorable thing and not act
interfere.
On what I feel.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, they're interesting characters. He's really is. I agree with you. He's one of my favorite characters this season. You
Look
know,
at that. We
and
agree
I
on
do
one.
hope he's back. Next, well, you know, I'm just holding off on Coburn until he earns it. I don't think
That's
he's
right.
quite there.
I think that's the way to get someone. You got to earn it. I think that's fair. I
Well, you
agree
know,
though. I love Fraser. I think we're gonna see more of him. I certainly, if we see more of Lockhart, we've got to see more of Fraser.
Exactly. I'm totally agreeing with you there.
Because
I will be
think
curious.
go ahead.
I'll be curious to know what they do with the story that they bring him back,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know.
And it's not, I don't say this lightly because I actually like Charles as a villain, but I like watching him on screen. He's entertaining. He brings a level to the show that it needs, I think. So I enjoy when he's on screen. He's a villain that I like to watch, that he makes things spicier and entertaining and fun. But Fraser would be able to further the story more than Lockhart would. So from a story standpoint, I think Fraser, if Lockhart's going to be in there, Fraser absolutely has to be in there.
He was a villain as far as Georgiana was concerned because of him. I mean, I think, but you know, the truth of the matter is the man was after money.
Mm-hmm.
And he just went about it the very wrong way.
Well, I mean,
and
it was all a farce to get Georgiana to be with him, to get her money, to steal her money.
Right.
It was a long con.
But I'm not convinced that he didn't somewhere along the line actually started liking her. I'm
excited for our Lockhart discussion.
Yeah, we're wandering off course here. But
no,
yeah.
I'm realizing that we don't fully agree on Lockhart. So I'm excited for that discussion. I do like him though. And I think we will see more of Fraser. I think if nothing else, we'll see at least what he and Allison are up to in their married life. And especially because we have to see Charlotte and Willingdon with Ralph, at least a little bit, I would imagine, in season 3, because that's where Ralph is and she's his fiance. So we've got to see them there. So if nothing else, I think we would see them interact with Fraser and Allison there in Willingdon, if not all of them coming to Sanditon together.
Right. And why would that scene we see where she's at Sanditon at the ball, it seems very likely Allison and Fraser would be with her.
Especially if it's Georgiana's party that she told Allison they're coming back.
Right. I'm sure they would show up for her party. So, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. I don't think they'll take up residence in Sanditon because he probably is going to become a farmer, or at least have to work in some capacity. He can't take off like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's so interesting to me that Frank Blake comes from a family of horsemen, you know. So he was more than ready to ride horses.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, you know, that the actor who played Sydney, Theo James, didn't really like the horses.
No.
You know, that was not a part of the.
It's funny that that's accurate, and they had so much of horses in this. Like even when Charlotte calmed the horse, and Coburn tried to calm the horse, and then.
It's a fact of life in that day and age. They're horses, you know. That's
but
how
they weren't
you get
focused
around.
on in season 1.
No, but you saw them riding horses. He rides into town on a horse. He comes and finds her at the very end on a horse. You know, so yeah, but the rest of the time they were in carriages.
Yes. But I mean,
So
in season 2, we see like with the calming of the horse, there's way more focus on the animals in season 2 than there was in season 1.
And it's my understanding that Ben Lloyd Hughes likes horses, and you know
he also said that to see his emotion, it usually comes through an animal. Didn't you? I think you're the one who told me.
Yes.
That was in the article.
Yeah.
So
he had said it, then it was we observed it.
Yeah. And I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised. And I know we say this at the end of every episode, but I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with the next season, and we just wanted to hear already. So we're going to do what we do and theorize at every episode of what we think is going to happen, what we want to happen. And we're going to overanalyze every character and every scene and every action that they have, because we want more of it. So
I want to tell you one other thing real quick. I just, I've been trying to find where I could watch Belle, which is the story that was turned into a film that Paula wrote. And I just found it last night on, I don't remember if it was on Prime or HBO Max. One
Well,
of
I have
them.
both of those. I'll look into it.
Yeah, it's really, I've seen it before when it first came out.
I've never
It
seen
is
it.
well worth watching. It's a similar story to Georgiana's story,
Okay.
but it's based on fact. I mean, it's based on a real person
Yeah.
who was the mulatto daughter who came to London. Anyway, it's really good.
I'll have to look that up. And
And it's just Belle, Belle.
Frank Blake played Harry in season 1 of Bridgerton.
I know, but I don't remember.
I don't know who that. I tried to look it up. Like I looked up Harry's Bridgerton season 1. I couldn't find anything. So it was just one single episode. So he must have been at one of the balls and one of the Bridgerton brothers called them out by name, or maybe Simon called them out. I don't know. There's a lot of season 1 I didn't watch because I had to fast forward through so much. So I mean, maybe
but he wouldn't have been in one of those scenes.
No,
you know.
But maybe I just accidentally fast forward through something that I needed to see. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to go back and look into it. All right. So next week we are going to be talking Georgiana, and I'm actually really excited about that because she had a big change. So I'm excited to talk about her season 1 versus season 2 and what she is now. There's been a couple people who have commented that they didn't like Georgiana until like halfway through the season, and I just did not feel that way. I liked her right from the jump in season 2. So I think it'll be a good discussion. I think it's going to be really fun to talk about that. And then after Georgiana, we're going into Lockhart. So
yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah, she's had quite the arc during over the 2 series.
Yeah,
and I'm sure it's going to go even further in the 3rd.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Yep, that'll be a fun discussion.
I didn't watching season 1. I don't think I would not have said in season 1. And in fact, we had these conversations. Georgiana was one of my least favorite characters season 1. It's the opposite now. So
because they wrote her like a teenage spoiled brat. You know?
Yep, they did her justice season 2. So we're gonna talk that next week. We have an exciting couple weeks coming up. Check out our Facebook page, the Sanditon Chronicles Sanditon Family Fan Club. And again, I say this on everyone. I'm trying to be more active in social media. But August is a crazy month and cancer is also insane. So it's just not going the way I want it to go yet. So soon you'll see me more active. And you can find Janice in the group too. She's always wanting to chat Sanditon. So hit her up. Okay. See you next time. Bye guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Are you craving more TSC content? Head on over to our social media accounts. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and our Facebook group, the Sanditon Chronicles Sanditon Family Fan Club. Also, check out our website, thesanditonchronicles.com. Of course, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to hear and what your thoughts are. Email us at the.sanditonchronicles@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in every week for new episodes.